Hello, hello. I guess we will be starting shortly. Hello, Tatian. Brazil. What time is it in Brazil now? Let's maybe modify the chat font size slightly. Hello, hello. 11 a.m. Okay. And here I live in Poland, so it's 4 p.m. here. Okay. Guess we'll just wait for some other folks to join. This time I've managed to schedule a live session, so that's a progress. It is hard when you have a toddler and the other kids, attending preschool. Speaking of which, actually, my kid just had woken up, so I'll just bring him here. Apologize, just a short, but my wife should pick him up anytime right now. So I'll just pick him up and we can start. Okay, so this little guy was asleep. He was supposed to be asleep, but he's going to be helping us with a stream, I guess, today. He's our junior consultant, specialist in performance. But I guess we still have a few minutes. My wife should pick him up soon, so it shouldn't be a problem. He just woken up or crying, so he needs a hug. Say hi to everyone on the camera. I'll just briefly open up the chat. Oh yeah, he's still asleep. He's still not comfortable. Okay, but I guess we'll give folks a few minutes. See here. And then we can start, I guess. Yeah, so don't worry about that. He's not gonna be here forever, although he may advise us with a couple of things. I'm still watching the viewers count. It's not high comparing to whatever folks have signed up for, so let's give them a few minutes. It's just 4 p.m. right now. Ah, see that guy? Oh, he would still be asleep, I guess, but now he doesn't want to. What's up, lady? Little pal. Oh, wonder where his mom is. But no worries, no worries. We still have a few minutes before we kick off, so let's just give the others a chance to attend. We'll do a quick recap first of what was done already and how everything works. Vincent. This little guy is Vincent. He's 9 months old now. Usually less crying than now, but yeah, that's... and he already speaks a few languages, like C# and Java. These are his main languages. He doesn't like Python, though. Thank you. Okay, there are people coming on to the chat, I guess, and to the stream. So if you are here, just say hello. We have a chat here on the window. Can you actually see the chat? Can you see the chat in the stream? It should be visible, but I'm not sure if the text is readable. Hello, Ankush. We are kicking off shortly, but yeah, it's nice to see you here. And I have a junior consultant with me. He's going to be our specialist in like scripting languages, like Java. Not sure that's in English. Okay, so you can see the chat, you can see the screen, and you can see us. Nice. I can see the chat as well. I can also give you a, let's see if this thing works. I can change the scenes. Yep, now it's a full scene. I'm not sharing the screen yet. I'm just hoping for more people to show up. If they don't, then it's also okay. We're just gonna start. Sadly, I have no overview of the little kid's mom location. So, his name is Vincent. He's 9 months old, and he's a junior consultant. He's going to be consulting us. Yes. Okay. Maybe let's start with a recap of what is actually the goal here and what I'm intending to do here. So I want to measure the core web vitals and the statistics of the browser from JMeter. Now I know that JMeter is inherently a protocol-based tool. So we're gonna need the help of some Selenium WebDriver to capture and render the No, he doesn't want to. So I'm just going to be using the Selenium WebDriver to capture all the details, right? So implementation-wise, I have an extension for Web Vitals and for page events. So this is injected into the Selenium WebDriver. And once I have these details, so events that I'm capturing, so for example, a click, a load, before unload, when the DOM contents loaded, stuff like that. So typically what the ROM agent would do. And also on top of that, I'm capturing the core web vitals. So LCP, first input delay, CLS, INP, time to first byte. The problem was where to actually put it, because JMeter itself is quite limited on the... the little guy is going out. Now we can start. No, I haven't used the JMeter DSL. I'm just using right now a Selenium WebDriver extension. So this is a Groovy script inside the JMeter. But that will also be nice, I guess. Okay, so we have this extension for the browser. So this is going to take care of our capturing and measuring the details from the frontend. And next, we also need, of course, the Selenium WebDriver. So I'm just using a standard Chrome driver in this case. This is a standard JMeter script, the WebDriver sampler. It is like almost like the Groovy, like the JSR 223 sampler, but with a small exceptions and less user friendly. So I'm using these to navigate and to execute some steps. In my case, it is just a simple page, not as simple. I'm using the DevProfops as an example with some basic steps. Really, so I'm just opening the page, navigating, finding some nav bar and stuff like that. And this guy, so JMeter, does a execution of the script. It also is sending the details to OpenTelemetry. So previously I have prepared an article how to inject OpenTelemetry into the JMeter so that JMeter also starts sending out spans from the customer's perspective. So that's, if you guys want that, it's on my LinkedIn page somewhere. So you just follow the steps and there's a whole GitHub with this implementation. So I'm using that. And on top of that, I'm also using some hooks from the Selenium WebDriver to listen for specific events, and I'm also adding them as attributes. So the end result is, maybe if my sign-out is already spawned, it should be. If I can show you a second. Try to show you this, guys. Okay, it should be nice. Okay, so the end result is, when I, for example, trace for specific steps, this would be the clicks that I make. So, for example, I'm opening the DevProfops page. the rolling out of the navbar. These are all steps taken straight from the JMeter script, right? So these will be matching my my actions. So the intention of the user, something that is really missing whenever you are monitoring the backend system and you want to trace some errors. So what was it caused? The first thing you should really ask, what was the user intention, right? What was it trying to do? And after that, you can follow. Okay, is this really an error or is it not an error, right? So that's for me at least a missing piece of the OpenTelemetry implementation, when everyone is focusing on just getting the backend details. They forget about the most important one. What was the user trying to do there, right? So effectively, when you send out the spans and traces from JMeter, you also notify the system, okay, this is what I was trying to do here, and I don't know why it failed. Or maybe it knows, but the intention here is an important factor. So when you click here, for example, if you want to measure the last step, if I show you my last call, you would also see here a list of calls made by the browser. So this is the same what you would see in the developers console when you open a browser. You would see those details of every call that the browser had made to the backend, right? To any backend, really. So it doesn't have to be your backend system. It can be like some fonts, and it can be some external ones. But the thing is, if you want to measure these events, you want to see the users or measure the user experience. Then you want to have the details to pinpoint exactly what happened on the front end. On top of that, maybe if I can just find the right span, if I can find the right one, this one's pretty blank. On top of that, I'm also capturing the core web vitals, right? So they will be forwarded as attributes for the spans, right? So for example, here I just made a action called click manifesto. You guys can see that here. And I'm also capturing the core web vitals as the attributes, right? So, and from there, it's like all the options are limitless, really. So, you can just capture that. And main goal here, and that's the main reason why I'm embedding that with JMeter and not just a standard Selenium script, is that I can run this along with a load test, right? So something that is rarely executed, like we have tools that do full browser-based load tests, and we have tools that do like the backend or the protocol-based. Hi Mohit, it's nice to see you here. So we have a front-end based test, we have backend based test, but if you do not combine them both, you will never know what's the impact of a saturated backend system on your front end, right? That's the thing. What core web vitals or any other metrics will not show you if you don't actually put it on the stress, right? The main reason is because the response from the servers is not usually right now with the reactive pages that we have. Is it the same script you do? No, it's not the same script I do for the front end and the back end. And because the scripts, for the front end, you would have to use the Selenium API, right? For the back end, you would still have to record and correlate the proxies. Otherwise, you will be facing the cost of the execution. Right. The main reason why we haven't run the full load test based on the browsers is the cost of the hardware required. Typically, what the pages are saying and what the documents are mentioning, you need at least one dedicated CPU and 1 gig of RAM to run a uninterrupted Selenium web driver or any driver for that matter. That's the main reason why so many tools still rely on the backend or the protocol-based level testing. So we don't have these costs. But the thing is, you can still measure the impact on the browser on the front end by sampling. So you're gonna have like 10 to 20 browsers opened, so 10 to 20 Selenium instances just running in a loop and sampling the user experience and the core vitals and all the other stuff during the test is running. So the main load will be still done by the protocols, like over the protocol. So you're just gonna record the HTTP calls as just like any other test. And on top of that, like alongside, you're gonna have a few users that would be just simulating your load test. And from there, when you already track this those numbers, you can have a dashboard. Let me see if I can never actually trace that. You can have a dashboard, for example, get yourself a time series with a metric of, I don't know, where do I? Can I actually see the? Should be there. It's not a metrics, of course. I need to be looking at traces. And I want aggregate attribute. How's that? I need the traces. I just need the not the span ID. Why would it be missing? Because I haven't. No, I should have. I should have some parameters here. Not in metrics. I need a trace. Okay, I'm not sure what happened here. Probably some bug with the query builder. But the main idea is to extract these values and plot them over time along with with your test, and then you can correlate and see the impact of the browser saturation of the backend saturation on your browser. So the last place we have left off is when we. Okay, I was trying to extract the page events, right? The idea here is, and that's a part of maybe a bigger problem. Maybe we'll try to solve it today. I'm trying to capture some basic page events, like when we started loading the page, when you have finished loading the page, when we unloaded the page, and when the DOM content has been loaded. So these are here. So I'm adding here a listeners on these events. And I'm storing them on a window local storage. That's the piece that's a part of the software architecture here. So I'll be just polling those events whenever I finish the action. The main problem here is when you have a script and you don't have the pauses, for example, between the steps, you will not capture all the details from the scripts, right? So if you, for example, open up the page, maybe I'll just show you that how it works. Because I'm logging these core web vitals, so they should be available here in the console. Yes. The problem here is when you have an event executed on the browser, measurement of the core web vitals may take longer than your actions. Right, and this would be especially true if you have some delay on the front end. You have a different condition to measure your transaction. Like typically, when you would be developing a script, like Selenium-based script, this would be a action. So you want to have, for example, okay, this is here just an event of to wait. Maybe not the best example here. Okay, this, for example, here. So I'm opening the page using the get method. So I'm just taking the browser. And the next step for me, Chat window. Yeah, I think we can do that. Sure. I think I can do that somehow, but then you wouldn't see it. Is it better now? Is it better now? Probably not readable, right? I'm not sure because I have many screens and I have you squeezed in. Not sure how readable that is. Okay, that's great. So typically, when you have a step like for the WebDriver sampler, you would need an action and some condition to wait for, right? When you only execute a get method, especially with Selenium WebDriver, it only sends out the action, and I think it waits for the first event until you start receiving the response, right? So there's no rendering in there involved. There is no measurements in there. The get itself or any action that you would send to the WebDriver would be almost instant. The problem here is you want to measure some conditions, right? So you want to measure a few things before, and make them a part of your metrics. Otherwise, running a browser test wouldn't make any sense. The bigger challenge here is to select a right condition to capture all the events and all the metrics, right? Because, for example, if you only wait for some button to be clickable, you would not notice that, for example, some other piece of the page has been working, right? And still was loaded on the back end, or still was, shifting your layout of the page, stuff like that, right? So these, for example, here, I have logged the events that the browser has been capturing as the core web vitals, right? So time to first byte, this would be almost always captured, but the largest contentful paint, this not necessarily, right? Because underneath, for example, the browser selects all the candidates for the largest contentful paint. And that's not it doesn't know from the start which one is going to be biggest, so it has to make the decision, make this call until after all the elements have been loaded on the backend, right? Because there is a render queue, there is an execution queue, like event loop for all the JavaScript asynchronous calls. So the core vitals library have to make a decision based on after the page has been loaded. So, and that's not trivial to execute with the Selenium WebDriver, right? We can have some conditions there, but the definition of this particular event is not that simple. So we can have an event, we can have a situation when we have completed some condition here on the web page, but the page is still loading. This would also skew our results, right? So if you try to, for example, extract the web vitals or the page events, they will be either incomplete or just simply missing, right? So that's a problem. I will be solving it later, I guess. That's one of the biggest challenge, right? Thankfully, normally what the performance script would have to have, if you simulate any actions from the browser, you would also add some pauses, right? So you have some timers depending on on your use case. And these pauses would also help us to extract more details and more metrics before we start the next step, right? So even if you have, for example, stop measuring this stuff here on the sampler, if you only add a timer here and some pause, like until you actually get the metrics from the browser, you may still capture them all, right? The problem would be if you had like a script just like mine right now. disable, and all the steps will be just running synchronously with just a small delays on waiting for some events. Then you would be at risk of missing some details, missing some metrics, or even worse, the metrics will be forwarded to the next call, right? So we could be in a situation when we report that we have some poor web vitals or the poor page events that have been taken that long. But in fact, but we would make them, we'll attribute that to the previous step of the test, right? So for example, here we'll like wait for navbar rollout, or we would, we just like roll out this navbar here, and it would take a like few seconds to pop up. The core web vitals would report a INP of some high value. But then this INP value, so the captured web vital, would land onto the next step. So in our case, this would be the click manifesto. And that's the worst thing that you can get, because if you try to then troubleshoot why you would have a high INP on this particular page, when you actually, like when you open here, you would look for any INP, there is none, right? So that's probably the worst thing that can happen. So yeah, that's the thing we'll try to solve as well. But for now, I wanted to focus on these events here. So I want to focus on events from the page. And I think we can also add a few more. Not sure how to do it yet. Okay, we can use a simple page as an example. And just, guys, this is still a work in progress. This is still highly experimental. That's the reason why I'm not sharing the code here with anyone. It's messy. It is just a proof of concept. Eventually, I plan to release that as some open source thing. I'm not sure even what format yet. But I know that there have been some questions about how we publish this, and until it's not production ready, I don't even plan to, because yeah, it's going to be a little mess for everyone, really, because you just get a bad reputation, and very few people would use that. Okay, so how do I deal with the page events, right? Web vitals, I have my own JavaScript script that returns me all the current web vitals, and same that I have for the page events. I was trying to get the page domain, like there's a whole API that can just push those page events to my Selenium script. But the thing is, the problem was, it was interfering with my network captures. One of the things that I have not mentioned also is that when you have this, when I have the interception of the calls, that's something I haven't seen anyone doing really. I am also injecting a trace ID. Yeah, you guys can see it because of chat. I'm also injecting a trace ID in here for every single call that is going out of the browser. I haven't seen that anywhere, and the purpose of that is, if you have a OpenTelemetry instrumented application, once you open the signals here, I cannot also show you because I don't have yet any auto instrumented app that I can use here for example. Once you open this page here and you open this operation, you could also drill down straight from the browser down to the downstream calls, right? So if there was a delay somewhere of the calls detected by the browser, you could also drill down here and see which backend calls were the slowest and why, right? So that's a full instrumentation. Like I said, I haven't seen any tool doing it yet for the browser. I think Grafana does some sort of a propagation of the context via the headers, but with a baggage. That's something different. But from here, you could just drill down straight from the browser to the backend for any culprit. So yeah, that's a bit here. And okay, I can shut it down. So let's try to get the page events running. I was trying to get the page events here, and I think this is what actually was getting the error of some kind. So now, this has not been rehearsed anyhow, so do not expect any perfect code running from the first attempt. This is still in a very experimental phase. Okay, cool. I need to determine these events here that I'm getting. So, for example, here I have the event data. So I have some click here. I have some before unload. These are the events I'm capturing here, right? That's, I guess, pretty cool. So what I need right now is to iterate through all of those events and add them as an event to my current and existing span, right? So let's try to do that. I'm already getting them as a JSON object, right? I'm printing them here, so page events, they are imprinted. And I think I can do this. So for dev events in is it gonna work? Okay, so I need a few attributes. One thing I do not like is a timestamp value here. So the format of a timestamp, it's not something I would be normally considering. So I'm using some performance package. I'm not sure I need the time origin now here. Maybe I just need the time origin itself. Request tagging, fetching the page events and web vitals from the page. Yes, exactly. And from there, you can affiliate that with a specific operation your browser had executed. So exactly here, right? So and that's the reason why I'm putting it on a JMeter script, because I can then affiliate it with the expected call, and I can propagate also the user intention to the OpenTelemetry, right? So and then you have a full span and a full overview of what the user has been doing, and then forward and capture the event into a DB. I'm actually using the OpenTelemetry collector, so I'm using Synos in here. So there is no DB here. Synos, of course, runs on the ClickHouse database, but the rule is really the same, right? So just from there, what you can do is drill down from the front end to the back end. See all the database calls that have been performed. So that's the main idea of observability. Oh, okay. It's nice to hear that someone likes the idea. Cool. So let's try to iterate through these pages, through these page events, and add them as attributes to my span. First thing I have to fix. I'm not sure which timestamp should I use. What's the performance time origin? By the way, guys, if I'm doing something stupid, just let me know. I'm really open to any suggestions. Okay, so I'm just looking at the performance events right now. Let's see if I can transfer it somehow. Okay. First of all, I'm not a JavaScript expert, so that's, you will see me struggling with that, but that's I guess a necessary evil if you want to work with frontend. Okay, this is a time origin. Performance interface returns to a high resolution timestamp that is used in baseline of performance related timestamp. But what's the value there? Yeah, I guess. What's the value here? Performance now or performance origin? The problem here is, okay, maybe I will just describe the problem. I don't like the scientific notation here that I'm being returned here. So I just want to convert that to something more readable. The thing is, I have a high resolution timestamp there and low resolution, whatever that means. And I think I will be good with just milliseconds timestamp format. So this is me here learning still this thing. Let's get the performance now timestamp. Let's see what's the result we're getting. Yeah, I think this is the least useful here. I think this guy is like in nanoseconds or microseconds resolution. This doesn't look like a Unix timestamp. So performance now, and so maybe the performance origin should return us the milliseconds. That should be, I guess, as well fine. Whatever fits into the long. I'm not sure, we shouldn't be really worried about the microseconds or nanoseconds on the front end, because for whatever reason, front-end developers have SLAs of a few seconds to render a page that's been, returned by the backend in a couple of 100 milliseconds, right? Even less. Like, we're talking about very short periods. So I'm not sure the resolution of like higher than a millisecond should really matter for these page events. Yeah, so we're not doing any profiling here. Okay, so I will switch the performance now to the time origin. I think the time origin should be in a milliseconds. Let's see that. No, it's a time origin that returns the scientific notation. Any ideas, guys, how to get the timestamp in milliseconds? I'll just, we'll just Google that. JavaScript time milliseconds. Can I do it like that? Ah, it should be date now, right? Okay, let's check the date module. What happened? What happened to my camera? Can you guys see me? Let's see. Something's not right here. Let's see, website logo up. Okay. As a question, let's say we have a website, a load a web page. Let's say it took 8 seconds for the load. If I run some web page from my JMeter, I think there seems to be quite a lot of diff of response. Why? It really depends on how you measure this, right? The JMeter itself, like by default doesn't do any rendering, any like additional stuff. It just calls for all the all the pages, right? So it's hard really to determine what's the culprit here without seeing what was actually the slow factor, without measuring what was the slow factor in the page. Typically, the main reason why it will be slow is a front-end rendering and JavaScript, because JMeter by default does not render that and doesn't evoke anything. And there's also a way of how you actually measure that, right? If you have a few backend calls executed on the front end that are not a part of your JMeter script, they would also not show up here. There could be also some event loops that browser is just busy on executing on some rendering before it fetches for another event, and JMeter will also not capture that by default, at least, right? I think it's worth just inspecting what exactly your browser is doing and why would you see that it's slow. Okay, page events. I think date now should be fine by the documentation. About GPT for implementation, stuff like that. I also use that, but only when I'm extremely stuck. Yes, it captures the embedded resources, but it doesn't still execute any JavaScript, right? It's not set, and it's not configured anywhere that your browser will do the same also immediately. There can be some event loops inside the front end that would not even allow a browser to execute the next call. What the JMeter will be doing for the embedded resources is just going to capture whatever from the scripts and from the CSS from the page once it finishes rendering, and it does that immediately. So it has 6 threads, I think, by default. But it does everything at once, whatever it can do. The browser doesn't necessarily have to do that, right? So it's very important to understand what exactly is the front end doing, so that you have an accurate results. And the best way really to do that is to run with a real browser. Right, that's the main goal, and various tools already support that, such as the JMeter. LoadRunner has been doing it for a while with the True Client. NeoLoad has also stepped up with this game. They also do the browser rendering, K6 as well. So there are options. Okay. Date now. Let's see if the date now returns any good string, or am I just going in circles? And back to the ChatGPT. I also like to use the GPT for many problems trying to solve it, but I also want to push myself into thinking first, right? So until I'm really stuck and lack ideas for implementation, I would just hit the documentation and try to examine, what did I do wrong, right? So similar is at my regular work. I just try things myself. If I'm stuck, if I don't know anything, I'll just get there. Yeah, they can't. The embedded resources option, they cannot simulate the browser behavior because the browser loop events is totally different. It may be, we're using some various scripts inside, and simply because we don't simulate the browser as its core. you cannot have the same behavior and the same like differences between the spans, right? It just downloads the 6 resources in parallel. It doesn't do the emulation of the browser anyhow. It just can't, right? And the thing is, it is the least expensive operation, like computationally, for this engine, for the browser. So you can of course generate and get all the I/O from there. That's also a valid point, right? That's also important for the test to actually put your system into the like realistic load. But then again, if you just like if you do not simulate the whole like JavaScript engine underneath and the whole rendering engine, you would not have the same results. That's simply impossible. Oh yeah, thank you, Tatian. I was also considering that, but yeah, let's try things out. Let's see if we can just do it ourselves, and then after, as a last resort, as a last step, let's just consult GPT for this, and it should be fine. Yeah, the worst thing that can happen is we're gonna learn a few things, so it's not a wasted time. Okay. Also, this may be yep, that's a timestamp, and I'm guessing this will be millisecond. Is that a millisecond? That is a Unix converter, right? Okay, this is in milliseconds. That's a timestamp that I want. Okay, so we have these events extracted. We know that the timestamp is going to be in milliseconds. Not sure if that's a string returned or an int. We're just gonna pass it to a long. Yeah, I think that should do it. Okay, so for each event we have here, interested in the yeah, so that's one of the reasons, like having thousands of browsers is not recommended anywhere, but you still need to emulate the responses of the and to emulate the load somehow, right? So the idea here is you're just gonna have, and that's one of the implementations that I'm trying to do here and really expand on, is to have the protocol-based threads that will do the heavy lifting and heavy saturation of your backend system, and you're gonna have a small set of browsers that are going to measure the impact of this front-end or the backend saturation on the front-end users. Right, so you're going to have a full flexibility of backend troubleshooting and the front-end impact. So that's the main idea here. Like no one, there's one company that I know, and I've seen it on the one of the talks for Eurostar, I guess, when they had a load test for some video chat application, and they did that in all browser rendering. So they took like whatever was left out of the Amazon. So they took one side of Amazon almost completely out, and they were doing like I don't even recall the exact number of browsers and the CPUs they were doing, but it was crazy expensive, and it was one of the one of the requirements for the customers to have it all browser. And that's crazy if you ask me, but still they have pulled it off, right? So I don't even know what the bill for the cloud was. Yeah. So the idea here is really to have a small set of browsers along with a big set of threads that are just going to load your backend, right? And this should get you covered really from the various perspective. Yeah, and it's way better than just doing the backend. Basically, like you see yourself, if you just do the backend calls with embedded resources, it doesn't like get any close to the response times for the browser, right? Okay, back to the development. We haven't written a single page like and single line of code yet properly. So we have a list of events. I don't even know what the types here returned are. We have like this execute script returns a JSON object. Let's see if we can just deduct the types here. So there will be an array list of events somehow. This page events that I've already determined before. So you didn't see me doing that. I did it previously. I need the event type. So event, and it's going to be a event. I'm guessing this will be a map of some sorts, so I just need the event type. And let's try our luck. I asked this question before because someone asked recently what are the reasons for the web page if JMeter takes more response time when compared to say browser, web page in browser. That's the difference really is and it has to be like great, right? I'm not sure why modern browsers are still constrained to this single thread, all async architecture, because like technically there is really no reason for it to take up more resources and to be more powerful comparing to a like modern game engines, let's say. But yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm not even sure what the reason would that be. Power consumption, maybe. Okay, back to the topic. We have the event type, and we need a timestamp. Event get timestamp. I started thinking about getting some IDE for this Selenium web page. But the problem is here with this with the script, it's not like you cannot even pass the page the script path to this thing. HTTP3. I'm not sure it's a matter of loading and the protocol itself, right? So if you, for example, do the RPC call, yeah, it should be faster on a large scale, right? What, for example, HTTP2 and the gRPC is doing. Why is it faster? First of all, it's fast serialization, so better compression. It just does less data transfer. But for most cases, it doesn't really matter because you still have like most of these fit into a single packet. Really, there is no like unless you have a heavy volume loaded, the data just goes through. Like minimal amounts of data would just go through. The connections for the gRPC are persistent, so you don't waste any time on maintaining the connection. You just keep them alive, and they just go through as well. They're also you can reuse the same connection for many concurrent calls. And so you can have a like single connection. You just gonna get multiple responses and requests at once, right? So and these packets are signed somehow. I don't even know the details, the exact ones. But the protocol here doesn't like for the modern pages. The protocol doesn't solve much. Right, the transport layer is just as fast as your hardware is going to be, unless you do some crazy or some specialized trading applications that do that require the sub-millisecond latency. Then yes, but other than that, you have very little gain comparing to the optimization of the like of your front end versus back end operations. You would really have to do some specialized calls and specialized transactions to make gain out of a HTTP3. Like if your backend sucks, it just sucks, right? So no protocol is gonna save that. Okay, cool. We should have the timestamp. We should have the event type. I'm not sure this string here is going to work. The thing about Groovy I don't like, and if I want to use some Java libraries on top of that, is, you know, if I just go def and something, this type is anonymous for me, and I don't have any autocomplete or any recommendation to use there, so I don't even know which types I'm working with. Okay, but we can do parse get objects. I need the current span, and we can add event. We can add an event of name event type, but also I'm using here a span API, so the OpenTelemetry API for the span. It also allows us to determine a parse long. I want a timestamp. Pretty sure we also have to determine see, coding out of memory is not a best idea unless you really know your APIs. So right now that I have written this monstrosity, let's consult the documentation. So using the span API, and I'm using the add event. So oh, actually it comes with attributes as well. I have no idea that the events can hold the attributes. That's nice. Okay, it can have a long timestamp with a time unit. I was right. It has to have a time unit and timestamp of a long. So you can add an event here, time unit. I have to also import it probably somehow. Accepted. Time unit, and it's an enum, and it's in the milliseconds. Okay. So really you have to know your APIs to make use out of it. Milliseconds. See, that's important. We are passing here a long, but that's a nullable long. It shouldn't be a problem, I guess. We have to import the time unit package. I really hope it's available there. Okay. What? Navbar rollout. Okay, let's see if this thing works here. Debugging the scripts is very hard. And that maybe if I can add a parallel controller for some parallel calls. Not if my response was right. Not sure I know what you mean here. So no amount of parallelism is going to really help. Because there is also the rendering and the JavaScript part that is executed there. So the difference would still be there, even if you parallelize this somehow. Hi Ragav. Nice to see you here. Okay. Browser is not being determined. I'm getting some errors. That's fine. But sorry, I hate debugging these scripts because I have to shut down all the instances it somehow keeps track of the same browser, so it tries to reconnect to the existing driver if it's running, and it just fails to do so. Okay. Java. No, I actually want to right now see if I'm getting any errors. That's the first thing. Now for rollout web vitals. I think what is this event attributed to? We have captured some events, but I'm not sure I have actually gotten them right. No, because no, the click event should be there, right? The click event should be there, I think, because right now, it's just a messy code. Oh yeah, that's exactly the point of this session here. To interact with others, to share your experiences, and to learn something new, right? This project may get completed, may not. I really hope it will be, because like exactly these events, like differences between JMeter, like backend and frontend response times, that's huge, right? That's a very meaningful difference, and at least I want you guys to understand what's the difference and how we can measure that, how we can tackle that, right? Otherwise, we'll just be load testing, thinking that everything is fine. The JMeter is going to tell us, hey, it's all good. The backend looks okay, but then the users will start complaining, saying, but we have very bad performance. Even if you look at your dashboards, like if you have a like latency dashboards per, let's say, an endpoint, they can show up right. They will be within your SLIs, but the users would still complain, right? If you don't put this on a synthetic monitoring of a end user, and you don't have the metrics measured, then you may have a gap between your measurements and actual user performance. Okay, back to the topic. As I I think we have not captured all the details here. Web vitals key. I actually have to also copy paste. That's a very bad thing to do, but it's still in a phase. I have not structured it completely yet. This will be probably in some post execution, like in a post processor edit here. So for now, I'm just gonna copy paste that, but please don't do that for a ready code. It's really a bad practice to copy paste everything here. Okay, I'm just going to try adding these attributes. Let's see if I can just correlate that. See, the test, I started the test and it didn't start the browser because the browser was already running. Hate that. Oh, see, my camera is sometimes just lagging. I'm not sure what that is. I'll have to fix that, but not now. But from time to time, you just won't see me. The page is still loading. Not sure what that is. This might be some hiccup from the JMeter or the interceptor. Huh. Some delay. Let's hope it's not permanent. Last time when it happened, I had to restart my machine. So let's hope it doesn't repeat. And you even lost my camera feed. Now you can only hear me and see this Elgato stuff. That is something very wrong. You know what? Okay, I'll try to shut down all the instances of the WebDriver. See if this helps. Probably something more drastic is gonna have to be used. Okay. All the instances of the WebDriver had stopped. That's a good sign. Let's clear everything. Let's start again. I really hope the page is going to open. Yes, it opened. Okay, so now let's see if I don't get any errors. Of course I do. Missing property exception, no such property time units. Of course, and that's a problem. See, when you import scripts and when you try to copy paste the code, you also have to copy all the dependencies. So now I have to also copy the imports. Okay. It's already lagging, so I'm not sure we're gonna keep up like that for today. 2 browser instances, this guy's loading. My camera is lagging as well. Nice, this is everything that can go wrong during the live coding session. But that's okay, I guess. See, it's still loading. I guess it broke it again. So an hour is the limit. I think it has something to do with me closing the browser using the X button here on a Mac. So it doesn't actually close fully the browser. Let's try to close all the instances again. Force quit. The problem also with these browsers, like with the WebDriver, is that it's detected by the system as Google Chrome as well. So I just cannot just use my activity monitor to shut it down easily, at least. Okay, but this code should already work. Let's clean this up. It's loading again. It's nice. Let's see if there are any exceptions. There are no exceptions there. That's great. This means the code at least compiled. Let's see if we are forwarding the events. They should appear. They should appear here as the last step. Just move it here. So this guy should have some events already. It's already +5. Nice. Okay, this is exactly what I wanted to see here. Sadly, the Synos doesn't show these events on a timeline. So that's a bit problematic, but as you can see here, we had some events, page load, we have, say, the DOM content loaded event here, and it happened. It was forwarded straight to the OpenTelemetry, right? So if I just focus on the selected span, it is already focused, right? Yeah, of course it is. I can see, where this event occurred. On tempo, you would also see them as like a horizontal lines that you would see exactly, hey, what like when the DOM content was loaded, when it started loading, stuff like that, right? In Synos, I did not find this option. Maybe I'm missing here. Maybe if you guys are familiar with this tool, it would be good to know. But that's something I was missing in relation to the events, right? Because I can see these events that they have happened, and that's okay. We can capture them. We can see we can see them in here. The problem is I have no use of this information unless I have it really visualized in here on my dashboard. Because I don't know where, like, okay, I know the 1.95, I can like somehow determine that it's there, right? I have to load from, for example, all of these resources to get a response. But for example, if there's a gray area here, for example, that I don't know when this event ends, for example, this call had ended, right? So I don't know whether the DOM content loaded has been blocked by this resource or not, whether I should optimize this resource or not. Probably yes, but no, actually no, because this guy occurred after the DOM content loaded has finished, right? And that's one of the things that I'm trying to achieve here, so that you can easily determine the blocking resources that have blocked some events on the browser, and the non-blocking ones, right? So they have to appear somewhere here. But that's I guess for another session. Do you guys have any questions? I'm really open for some suggestions on the chat. You guys are active. I really appreciate that. If there's something I've missed here, just also let me know. If you think my code is broken, do let me know. Nothing in the chat yet. Okay, so back to the topic of synchronization of these events. We know we can capture them. We know we can assign them to a specific transaction, but right now we are still at risk of misattributing the events and the tags. How did you integrate JMeter with OpenTelemetry? That's a great question. I have an article about that. So if you see my LinkedIn, there should be an article there. Maybe just a second. I'll put it on the chat there somewhere. I wrote a whole article about that. Where are my articles? I'll just put it here. I've put the link to the chat, but it's also, if you look at my profile, it's called instrumenting your load test with OpenTelemetry. So that's a starting point really for all this work. Yeah, and this is how this is why the JMeter acts as a forwarder of this traces, and yeah, that's a starting point at least. So it should have a link there to the GitHub, so where you have a full JMX running with that. It's pretty simple, really. So you have to initialize the OpenTelemetry within SDK, right? So you have here, that's really a simple implementation, the simplest that can be. The real magic is with span creation, right? So I have a preprocessor that is running before the transactions I want to sample. So it just creates a whole new span there, and injects also the OpenTelemetry headers to the variables, right? So and that's a piece of code here. So you whenever you create a span, if you want to propagate the context further, or for example via headers, whether it's a HTTP call or a or an MQ or Kafka call. This is how you do it. There are two main headers. There's a trace parent, and there's also one filled with baggage. I don't recall which one that is. But the trace parent is the actually trace ID with a span ID and a flag whether it should be propagated. Think. So there is some logic in there also included in this trace ID, and yeah, this you can also get a trace ID out of it. This is important for my implementation when I have a correlation of the trace IDs and I want to look them up, for example, in Tempo. But that's something for the future. So that's for my Kafka and Spark reporting. I'll also be showing that later. So that's I mean, not today, but later. And SDK, that's just an SDK. This is required to create any spans. And then after you have stopped the span, we are just ending the span. We update it with the name of the sample of the sampler, and we just close it and end it. So we close the scope, we end the span. The problem here is there's few problems really with this implementation right now because it's not a standard one. Typically, the OpenTelemetry, the traces would be stored in the context. So as soon as you just create a span and make it current, there's a call make current. This goes into the scope, and from there you can just extract the current span with your with any API, even if you don't pass the span anywhere. I want to have a full control of that, so I just created my own implementation. So that's just something to be aware of. And yeah, we start the span, we end the span. That's it. One of the problems with that is it really measures the real time of the span, of how long it took to execute some samplers. This is not an ideal situation for all of the cases, right? You may have, for example, even in the JMeter scripts, you have this option to what's it called? You have pause. You have the option to pause the request, and they stop being measured immediately, right? With this pre and post processor stuff, you just measure all the time that has passed. So if you, for example, include a timer in here, if you just include a timer, the timer would also be measured as a part of a span. And that's something I also intend to tackle, but that's obviously is going to be for the next session. So I will tackle it all, like the lack of metrics or metrics attributed to a different call, and also this timing here. I will also tackle that on the next session. I already have an idea to solve that. This will probably break a few scoping rules of the JMeter, but yeah, I guess this will have to do for now. So because if you don't have a functional implementation, there's really not much to talk about. Yeah, so we have the spans, we have the page events in here. I really wish they were visualized here. I'm like really missing this piece here that I can see the events. Maybe I'm gonna talk to the guys from Sinos that, you know, hey, we need these events to be visualized somehow. And what I'm also missing here, I haven't seen any product doing that, but I also have not seen all the collectors from OpenTelemetry to get an artificial spans or the durations in between the events, right? When I have an event somewhere here, I would also want to, and I know I only care about when this event had occurred, but you know, stuff like, hey, okay, when did it occur from the start of a transaction, or some in between event timings, right? I want, for example, to be able to create a span out of these two events, right? So I know that this is important, but I want to also measure how long it takes between these events and what's the difference here, right? That's for analytics. I'm not sure if any tool on the market does that. If you guys know that some does, then I'm sure also happy to check that out. Any other questions? The chat is a bit active today, and I really appreciate that, guys. I know that we are past the time, the scheduled one. Okay, after this awkward silence, I think we can just conclude for today. I think I'll be scheduling a next meeting pretty soon. We have to finish that and finalize. Now that we have those events and attributes already in the OpenTelemetry. K6 doesn't measure the front, or it's only there is a option to do a front-end rendering with K6. And they also measure the core web vitals, right? But it all goes to their own internal like metrics there. So that's K6 does that from like it, and it's a very recent thing. Have you checked the Sinos API documentation to see if there's some API we can call to push these events to create a timeline? You know, I would expect it to show up here in the in a dashboards area. I haven't seen a option like that here. Maybe there is something in a doc that works there, but I don't really know what that is. So I'm not sure even how would that be resolved, like technically, on how to create the reports out of that. But because if you just go the time series, you can go for logs, metrics, or traces, right? I would expect some traces there, but there is no. There's no events of any sort here. Time tag. Oh, this is what I was looking for initially. So you have the you have here the call root vitals, right? So these are extracted from my calls here, and you can, for example, run a chart. Let's say a LCP, right? Probably a call would be fine to have. So I can have a span guess. There's no data. Why would there be no data? Last 6 hours. I don't see any data here. Maybe this group condition doesn't work. Oh, you can see here, for example, I have a I have the LCP, so the largest contentful paint, plotted in here, right? So that's the idea of these attributes. I haven't seen anything for events, right? I'm not sure. I'm not even sure how they plan to solve that, or whether they actually plan to give us any actionable and meaningful analysis of these events. Cool. I guess this is it for today. Thank you very much for attending this session. Thank you very much for the comments. This has been really fantastic. You guys are awesome. So I guess I will schedule a next meeting and we can all finish this up. So yeah, thank you again, and see you next time.